Dr. Jessica Ash here. Happy Friday afternoon. Today I have the honor of interviewing the president of Success Systems International, Kurt Krueger, about what it means to have a core value of love. Thank you for being here with me, Kurt.
Well, thank you. It's an awesome topic, that's for sure. I don't know anybody who doesn't like love, whether it's love songs, whether it's love from any which way it can happen to you. Mm-hmm. Love of children, love of the beautiful wife or your husband or whatever. Can't be beat. And let me just say one more little thing. Every value that we value in the world comes from love. Respect, responsibility, kindness, courtesy, compassion, all these beautiful values that are actually, there's a program, it's called livingvalues.net. It's Living Values Education Program. They have 90% reduction in violence at a refugee camp within 2 years. And their first value that they teach is love. Peace comes from that, and then all the others come from that. And it's a magical program, and we can create magic. And where does it all come from? Deep inside.
I'm glad you started that way. What you made me think of is it really took me a long time to almost let myself accept that that was my core value. I have led a values-based life for a long time. And I actually have a video out about how to choose, about choosing two values, because you can't choose 70. And your value is not based on some random thought of, oh, I think that respect is my core value. No, your core values come from the way you live and your actions. And I'm doing an MBA, and it was in a business class that when we were doing a values exercise, I said, oh my gosh, my first value is love. And then I said to the teacher, I said, oh, I can't do that. That's not like a business thing. That you can't have a value because I'm in. And he just kind of giggled at that. But I think that's a good transition point to get to like the first topic of how do you find love?
Oh, you know what was interesting? You talking about this business class and love. I just spoke with a man that he's talking to me about working with his wife's company, because he's actually one of the top people in the NASCAR industry.
Wow.
And I said, listen, this is what we do. We do things way differently because you get to approach life fully so life can thrive. And the only way life can thrive is with that first core value. If that core value is not there, the team that you've created in your NASCAR team or whatever won't function fully. If people don't love each other and don't treat each other with great respect and so on. This really is the core for all of life, because look at how we were created. We were created out of love. And all we get to do is tune in to that love that we were gifted and share it. And when we share it, it spreads like wildfire. But instead of wildfire, that's destructive. This lightens things up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we were talking about earlier about Western society, and I guess you could really say any society today, that I certainly know I had this feeling when I was growing up that I had to do something to be loved. Have I accomplished enough today so that I can be loved by the world or by somebody else? But you put that on its head today.
This is something that never comes up in indigenous societies. Everybody loves the child. Everybody treats the child like their own. Just when I was raised, of course, I'm 94,000 years old. I got an excuse, but when in our neighborhood, if we were in a neighbor's house, that was my mama. She was going to treat me just like she did her kids, however they treated us. And it may be different in each of the houses. and we knew which ones we wanted to go to and which one. We had the swimming pool. Everybody wanted to come to our house. But the key is having that tribe, having that clan, or having that cadre of people like you've created, a cadre of people who care about other people. You've got people listening to you. You've got people being guided by you in some way or another. Just speaking to this boy in Africa yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
He treats you like the mama because you are. You treat him with great respect and love like you would your child. And the world changes when you do that. The simple thing about life to make better is one simple rule. The golden rule. Not the ones that have the gold rule, but the golden rule. Treat others the way you want to be treated. Everybody would be living in heaven. I've never been on the 5 continents that I've been on. I've never, ever seen anybody on any of those continents, in the bush in Africa, in a billionaire's place in Bombay, and so on and so forth. I've never seen anybody in the world that did not want the exact same thing as I wanted for my children. They wanted love and peace and happiness. If you have the love, you got the happiness. You don't have to add that on. It's going to come automatically. Just like Mother Teresa, she treated everybody like as if it was Jesus, because that was her chosen deity or God or whatever. And so when she did that, she gave her love to those dying people with these wounds that were oozing sores, and she cleaned them by herself with her hands. She got nitty-gritty dirty. But it didn't matter. She treated them with love. They could either die peacefully because of her love, or they could revive themselves and be able to share the love like so many people were able to do, just by that simple act. And with a smile like you have, when you smile at somebody on the street or whatever, they smile back. It's catching. It's the one thing that we love to catch besides baseballs, or something like
Yeah.
that.
I want to take one step back, because I think it's hard for people to necessarily relate to Mother Teresa. They think, oh, I can't be like that.
Oh.
And, the funny thing about that, it's funny you brought her up, because I took a personality test as a part of the MBA program. And they said, well, you have the same personality as Mother Teresa. And I was thinking, no. And then the International Human Rights Council gave me the Mother Teresa Award in the same week. And I was like, well, I guess it's kind of hard to, but that gets back to loving yourself. And so can you talk to me about the difference between trying to accomplish something in order to gain love externally, as opposed to just loving yourself?
Well, when you love yourself, you can give love to others. I got to give you an example. You give to others what you have inside that's worth giving. You give to them the purified parts of yourself, such as courage, knowledge, joy, love, maybe 25 cents. In India, I'd give 25 paisa. That's nothing to a beggar. But it allowed them to be able to, I could then say blessings of light and love, or blessings of health and wealth to you. Inwardly, I would say that as I gifted them with a little paisa. We can do the same things. Just little acts can bring people smiles, can make them feel better, can stop a person from committing suicide. There's all kinds of stories about such things.
Well, and it makes you feel better too. Oh. But I would like to say that it took me a long time to learn to love myself, but I have always demonstrated love. I've always felt the need to demonstrate love. And, like when I had little kids, when I had kids in high school, I had a lot of empathy for the pain. We all remember high school, like getting up at 5:30 in the morning, and then the traffic going, like 4,000 cars going into one parking lot. And I heard a lot of parents just, yelling at their kids, get up, it's time for school. And I thought, I'm not going to be that person. So I would light incense and there, that wakes up their sense. And then I would get a warm, wet washcloth and put it over their eyes. And then I would sing to them a lullaby in French. And then I would make pancakes, waffles, bacon, eggs, and well, you know what young men eat like. My goodness.
I'm going to be in your house next time.
Yeah. So I chose to act with love before I loved myself. But we're talking about a lot of different topics here. And I would encourage people, of course, to go and do random acts of kindness. Random act of kindness will help you connect with your inner love. But you don't have to love yourself first. You can learn to love yourself. And some of that has to do with throwing off the yokes that society has given us. And you don't have to achieve anything to love.
Yeah. What we get caught up in this capitalistic idea. I've got to do something to be worth something.
Yes.
And it is not true in nature. The little flower that may be just a little flower over here may be able to give a little bit of what they have to this bee or this other bug, or the microbiome in the soil is fueled by this particular little flower, and so on and so forth. Everything that's created has their own purpose. And when we realize the main purpose of humanity is to make things better, to be who we really are. I'm an identical twin. I know it's scary. That's why I don't look in the mirror. But he is way different than I am in so many ways. We were created identically, everything else, but we're very different. I happen to believe in a person who my brother would never, ever vote for. And I sure would not vote for the man he got elected. That's my preference. But we still love each other. We still talk with each other instead of at each other. And there's a difference. When you have love and respect, we don't talk down to each other. We talk with each other. We get to be able to speak together, and we get to be able to generate a thriving life just by doing cooperation, collaboration. I helped develop with 5 other people the absolute best physical education program in the state of California for middle schools. It was voted that twice by the professional organization. No other middle school had ever been voted that. Our main thing about PE were basically 3 things: was to be able to strengthen character, have fit for life ideas, and to be able to have fun. And we did it in a fitness environment, and to be able to make it so people always had fun. And there was challenges, but they were challenges by choice. Like, for instance, the last thing in 8th grade, we got to do a trust fall, standing on top of a table,
trust,
and back into kids' arms. Now, when I always let it off, I would fall into the kids' arms, and I did it in 7th graders at one time.
You're brave.
And I'm 6 at that time. I was 6'2". I'm only 6'1" now, but I had surgery on the back, and because I did get dropped at another time. But that's another story.
Okay, I'm glad it wasn't then.
No, but they were able to see that I trusted them and that they could do that. And so people who got up there that were overweight, if they got up there and turned around and said, I can't do this, I said, okay, you don't have to, come back down and you can help catch people or whatever. So it's all about life is a choice. Oftentimes we don't give people a choice to love themselves because people say that's egotistical. If you can't love yourself, how can you love somebody else? Mm-hmm. That's why Muktananda, he said, there's so much love in the heart that it is enough not only for one man, but for the whole of humankind. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, people do not have access to it because of desire, unnecessary mentation, and anxiety. It is only when we become completely selfless that the inner springs of ambrosial love is released. So what happens? We've got to go inside where the source of love is. And inside, is that egotistical? Not when you meditate. Meditation gets you out of your mind. Thank God, because what has your mind done to you sometimes? Make you crazy, right? It's either your best friend or it's your worst enemy.
Absolutely.
Meditation gets to be able to allow you and me and anybody who works at it regularly, and it may be work when you start, but then you find it's not work. Then you find that you're feeling this incredible feeling that nobody can buy.
So let me pause you right there, and I want to kind of phrase it in a way that I think might be more accessible. Now, I meditate, but and I practice yoga. But for everybody else, what Kurt is trying to tell you is he's trying to give you permission to love yourself without any accomplishments. So try to focus, if it's your first step, remember that you don't have to do anything to be loved. And I think part of that problem, I touch on this with education, is that everybody has to get a medical degree today, or a business degree in accounting, or some other quantifiable degree. Nobody can just study English anymore because they love it. And I have to tell you that not everybody on earth is supposed to be an engineer or a doctor. I don't have to tell you that. You know that. But we're far more successful if we follow what our natural talents are. I teach a lot of students that, you don't have to go to college.
Especially now. I've been consulting with people all over the world on the new education. The new education actually learns and uses biomimicry. So we mimic the biome. We mimic life, the natural life. It's like when you get off into nature and you really look at it. If you've ever been with a naturalist and you've seen a trapdoor spider who's created this trapdoor to get its food, and so on and so forth. Or you see this, people are raving about the octopus video on YouTube and so on. When you see that, it is magical. We can learn how to live life joyously. Give you another example on biomes. Every single cell that's a healthy cell in the human body, if there's a cell next to it that's unhealthy, it helps it. Only one cell in the human body, type of a cell in the human body that doesn't do that, is the one that everybody is so afraid of, cancer. It only thinks about itself. But the other cells know that if you thrive, I get to thrive. When you feel better, I get to feel better. But you don't do it for that. You're just doing it because that's who you are. That's the indigenous way. And people say that, they used to kill each other in those days and so on. Yeah, but the wisdom has come up from them about how to be able to actually manifest. We got our Constitution in America from the Iroquois, this confederation of tribes in the Northeast where you're from. Holy cow. These primitive people, these people we wanted to kill and take their kids away and bring them into special schools and forget about their language, forget about their heritage. We were just like the people in Australia who did the same thing with the Aborigines. At least the people in Australia asked for their forgiveness and said, we're sorry. We have never once done that. We keep on taking their land like in South Dakota and so on. And so
let's get back to love. So it's hard for both of us because we both can go in a lot of directions. But so, the first lesson is you're allowed to love yourself, and you don't have to be something different than what's inside of you. And sometimes the inhibitor is, a lot of women have the fraud syndrome where, I have to tell you that even when I was thinking about you agreeing to be interviewed me, I was like, he's going to realize I'm not worth it. He's going to realize that I'm not good enough. I still catch myself not loving myself.
Okay, beautiful. It's important. You did something that is really necessary. You started to see, you started to witness yourself doing something, and you get to change it. There's a practice in my book called Winning Ways for Living. In it, it's called switching. And it switches psychosomatic spiritual practice. It's a way to be able to change bad habits into good ones.
Yes.
And it's so effective. It's helped people with PTSD. It's helped people with smoking, all kinds of things. When you do that, you'll find out that each step of the way, you're getting better and better at it.
Yeah.
It's like this idea of the meditation. I can teach you a simple way of meditating, the simplest I've ever found in the world, that kindergarten teachers gave it its name. And this allows you to turn off the mind so you can experience that inner wellspring of love. Who doesn't want that? It doesn't really come from outside. Some things may trigger it on the outside, like your smile or something like that, or my wife's great food and so on, and
Right.
hugs and everything else. I mean, I could talk about her forever. That's another story.
So I'll have a video coming out where you demonstrate that method, and I really want that to be its own video so people can realize that you can't necessarily stop energy, but you can redirect it in such a way that it's not causing you a problem. And that message that right now I'm thinking of specifically, Innocent China, I can't pronounce his last name, but he's in Nigeria, and he keeps asking me, how do I meditate? How do I turn my brain off? And I think the term meditation can be intimidating. And it was one of my teachers who said, it's more about giving your self permission, or allowing it to visit you.
Yes.
Like, you create a situation such that eventually meditation will visit you.
Yes.
But we don't have a lot of time left. We're kind of run out of time, but I do want to go into love as a multiplier.
Oh, everybody sees it in their life. I don't know anybody who has not seen how love does not multiply love. It's that simple thing of a loving smile. Other people smile. Other people catch that. When they see you walk in a room and you're smiling, you're beaming open-heartedness. There's an energy field. The heart has more energy. Excuse me. Well, it does have more energy than the brain, but that's another story. The heart sends more messages to the brain than the brain sends to the heart.
Very interesting.
The heart, when it's open more, like we're talking about in regard to meditation and so on, when it's open more, the communications really travel, and you're following your heart. And what is not good about that? I've never seen anybody who followed their heart in business decisions, in any decision in their life. Like, I proposed to my wife without ever having a date with her. 28 years later, with two great boys, having done home birth, it was underwater.
Wow.
Amazing things. We even laid on nails in preparation for our first boy's birth, because Igor Charkovsky, the water birther from Russia, we were the first Americans he worked with.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, we've had a magical life because we follow our hearts more. We have people living at our house who've never paid us a thing. There's a lady that has I Give Trees from Mata Atlântico in Brazil. She's got a thing called I Give Trees. They're replenishing the most devastated rainforest in the world.
Wow, that's amazing.
The plants to grow. They don't just plant them and leave them, because they're just die off again. So they make sure that they grow.
Wow, that's really nurturing.
Yeah.
But some of these stories sound almost unattainable, I think, to a lot of people. And I always want to bring it back. As an educator, I want to scaffold people, and you can't just say, go meditate. You got to give them the steps to let it visit them. And so we've been talking about giving yourself permission. So catch yourself, stop yourself when you think, if I do X, I will be loved. So that's number one. Stop that. Just give yourself permission to love yourself, and it's not being overly egotistical. And the second one about this idea of love as a multiplier, I want to tell a brief story. I was in Mexico, actually. I was at a retreat, and there was a table of 8 people, and there was a baby. It was because it was Mexico. The family that had the baby didn't think they needed to bring any sweatshirts. They just thought it would be hot, and it was chilly that night, and the baby was so cold, and the resort had given us free money, like resort money, kind of like funny money. And I couldn't stand that this baby was cold. It was the only thing I could think about at the table. I couldn't have any conversations because the baby was cold. And if there's a baby in the room, God is there and love is there. So I went to the resort gift shop, and with my funny money, so it cost me nothing is my point. It cost me nothing. I was just thinking about this baby. I went to the resort gift shop, bought a sweatshirt, and gave it to the baby. And immediately I felt better, like, oh, the baby's going to be warm. And everybody at the table was like, oh, that's great. And so that's an example of love as a multiplier. And it didn't cost me anything. It was just me being aware of the needs around me. So be aware of the needs around you.
And what goes around comes around. There's some great stories about that too. I can go on and on, because in our development of this PE program at Van Nuys Middle School, I've created a whole bunch of what I called learning sheets. They're 1 to 2 page stories that uplift people, that talk about how to be able to live a magical life. And from Buckminster Fuller's story, who most people don't know much about his early life before he became so creative. He was kicked out of Harvard twice.
I don't know these stories.
Yeah, so these stories will engender this growth of that heart, that opening of the heart, and allow people to see little steps that they might decide to take, that actually in doing those steps, and they're only choosing to do it, it's not anybody forcing it.
Right.
We do it from our heart, and we start to be able to learn. I can give you a link to about well over 100 of these kind of stories that anybody can access on the Google Drive, and it's free to use without charging anything. You can't charge anything using these stories.
Good.
Yeah, it's like, that's the way it has to be. But why should we charge for things like this? The future is so different when you envision what you really want rather than what we have and taking little baby steps. We get to come out of this pandemic like the Renaissance. The Renaissance flourished after the pandemic. Now, sadly, they also had the Inquisition. That's something that we can prevent when because we know that politics is important to be involved in, and you don't have to be involved in the negative way of politics. We get to learn to talk with each other again because we're caring about each other. We're caring to make the planet better. We're caring because both sides of the aisle, or both sides of the political issue, conservative and progressive, they both basically want the same thing for their families. They just see how to get it a different way. So how can we work it out? How can we?
I totally agree with you. I get so frustrated with people who are just so mad at each other and their family members. So it really makes me feel better to know that even though you and your brother are on different sides of the political fence, you love each other. That's a huge lesson right now.
Yeah. We could do that up and down the street. I have people very close to me on my street, because I only have a dead end street. It's up in the hills, and we've got people on both sides, but I don't see those sides. When you see a side rather than a brother or a sister, then there's the separation demon. Separation is the killer of life. It's the divide and conquer idea. It's what's been happening. Put fear in people's minds instead of joy in people's minds. Why don't we look on the bright side of life? I think he was strung up on whatever.
So I'm going to set you up here. But you said that people are different. If we're different, aren't we separated?
We're not separated, just like my brother and I aren't separated, but we are different.
And together,
And what did you just say?
you're different together.
Yes. Yes. And we were really together, and that's why we competed all the time. You mentioned about this idea of meditation. It traumatizes some people. I've been an athlete all my life. I mean, I've won 11 gold and 5 silver medals in the International Senior Olympics too, besides being an All-American swimmer when I was in college. So my mind, I couldn't sit for meditation. I had read this great book called Be Here Now, and I just started doing all these things. And I started doing yoga in 1973. And, then I took a class and so on and so forth, but I could not sit for meditation. But when I met Muktananda could look at you, touch you, think of you, or give you a mantra, and you could be in meditation like that.
Wow.
I've never seen anything like that in my life. In Germany, I got stories about that big time.
Okay, well, we'll have to meet again. I want to kind of summarize.
We have to. We get to.
Yeah, thank you. Yes. I mean, I want to. That's what I meant. I have to do it. I want to do this. So, give yourself permission to love yourself.
Yes.
And it's easy to demonstrate love. Just be aware of your needs around you. It doesn't cost anything.
Or the relatives' needs around you, your relatives' needs around you. You are the same as your relative. Look at science, physics. It proves that we are all one. We just look separate. It's an illusion.
Yes. And so then the other one is be different together. And, whether you're on the right or the left, both sides are well-intentioned. Neither side has an evil intention. And we forget that. There was one other concept that we were talking about earlier, and that was about tribes. Can you talk a little bit about tribes and why that's relevant?
Well, when the Iroquois got together as tribes, they had these different nations that unified, and they had, the interesting thing is that they were so smart that they had only the women elect the chief. The women elected the chief. Mm-hmm. The chief, they knew, had to have what they call in Spanish cojones, these big bull's balls. They had to be just like a real warrior. But I was raised in the ghetto of San Fernando, Excuse me.
Okay, let's just move on from the cojones.
Yeah. and they also had to be connected with their heart. Mm-hmm. Everybody had to be ruled. These Iroquois had mentally challenged people. They had physically challenged people. They had the whole gamut that we have now. And yet the whole tribe was cohesive in supporting and being with each other as we were all related. There's a Omatakwiasan, which is a Lakota for all my relations. There is no single thing on the planet that is not our relations. As Neil deGrasse Tyson says, we are all stardust. We are all created from the Big Bang, so to speak. And all of this has evolved slowly but surely. We get to support this beautiful evolution. Our society has not come close to envisioning a magical society that can live in total harmony with nobody getting sick. And if they do get sick, they are totally cared for. If somebody has mental problem, they get cared for. If everybody is fed well, nutritious food, not stuff like Coca-Cola, even though people get addicted to it more than what they get addicted to on cocaine and so on and so forth. I mean, I can talk about nutrition up and down.
Yeah,
that's the program.
We'll have to make a list of different topics that we want to have. And when I think about tribes, I wanted to hear your perspective. Without thinking about Native Americans, I also think about families as tribes. And so the idea is to imbibe your children and whoever lives in your house with a deep culture. Celebrate their birthdays. I mean, you don't have to give them a gift, just sing happy birthday and do a silly dance.
Yeah.
But if you build your family with deep culture, you have a tribe. And your children grow up with a tribe, and they know that they're loved. And I know that the gang problem, part of the problem, not all, but part of the reason that gangs can flourish is they find these children who, for whatever reason, don't feel like they're in a tribe. And the gang becomes their tribe.
Totally. They're the family, and that's why they call it familia. And this is a ghetto kind of stuff. I was in the worst school in America at one time as a teacher.
Oh.
1972 to about 5 years. And then I went off to India. But I was teaching meditation at that school. We had the two biggest black gangs, two biggest Latino gangs in the country. I was breaking up about a fight a day, taking away a weapon a week. That's how bad the school was. But I got to teach them how to do meditation. I had them sit up straight in class when they first came in. After they'd opened up their book to the page we're going to be on, they put their homework on one side and the book was open, and they sat up straight and closed their eyes and paid attention to the movement and sound of their breath. And then the next week or two, I gave them a mantra. Now, at that time, I was sort of cultic. So I says, okay, we're going to repeat Om Namah Shivaya. And this big guy who's about 6'5", 250, I mean, he was a big ninth grader.
Mm-hmm.
He says, Om Namah, who ain't going to do that shit? I said, John, I don't know if you're doing it or not, but I do know your eyes are closed, your mouth is closed, and you're sitting up straight. If you choose to do this, you get to be able to have the benefit of what that mantra does worked for thousands of years for millions of people. It's like a cosmic tuning fork. You'll get the effect of that to calm the mind, because the calm mind, it calms the heart rate. When the heart rate is calmed down, the breathing calms down. Now, when we did the first part, the first week, it was calming the breath down. We tuned into the breath. So when the breath calms down, the heart rate comes down, the brain waves calm down. So we got to have the candle burn at both ends, and you got into meditation easier.
And you created a tribe.
Yes. We had a coach, and everybody got better grades in all their classes. It blew me away. But I knew the value of it. Mm-hmm. Be still and know that I am God. Nobody can know God until they're still, and then they can listen to the dude. Because he's not going to interrupt. He made the ethics. He made this, thing. Yeah. So we made a beautiful tribe of meditators. And meditation has actually stopped violence in places around the world. When enough meditators got into a little room when El Salvador was blowing up and fights, their civil war, TM brought a whole bunch of their intense meditators in, sat in rooms, meditated every day, twice a day, and so on. And within 3 days of their getting there, peace talks started happening. There was a ceasefire. There was this, that, and the other thing. They stayed a month. Within 3 days of their leaving, watch out. What happened?
It disintegrated.
As an old hippie, the vibes are real. You create those good vibes when you love things and love life.
So, one of the things you were talking about, you just moved from tribes to disintegrated. Everything disintegrated. And I had the honor of listening to Yitzhak Adizes, who's the founder of the Adizes Institute in California. I had the honor to hear him give a plenary last week. And he talks about how the world is the pace of change has accelerated so drastically that systems are, the change is asymmetric, and this system changes at a different rate as this system. So the systems start to disintegrate or fall apart, and we have problems. And this is coming to the conclusion, Kurt, that he did it so well. I can't speak as well as him, but he said, like in a marriage, at the start of the marriage, they're all lovey-dovey, but naturally time passes and they're kind of disintegrating. But a good marriage, they're constantly reintegrating. And that's like the idea of me always I caught myself. I said, oh, you're lacking in self-love right now, Jesse. Why don't you just stop that? And so good marriages, they do drift their own way, but then they come back to each other. And his idea was that we can reintegrate globally. That if we just constantly, not constantly, it's not like you have to do it now. It's just if we're aware of what's going on around us, we can reintegrate with love.
Yeah, totally. And there never was any borders on this planet. You don't see a border from space. The only thing you really see from space is the Great Wall of China. That's the only thing human beings have made that you can really see in space. So what is it that we're going to develop? We get to be able to create the future by what we envision, because man without vision shall perish. That's one of the old scriptures of the world. And without vision, we're just going the same old, same old. We're in the same treadmill. And he said, things are changing so fast. That's why I've been consulting with people for about almost 120 days now on getting the new realities prepared. So we're like a butterfly. We're in this chrysalis form. We're the intentional cells. The imaginal cells is what science calls them. I call them intentional cells. We went into this sort of lockdown for a reason. We came into this reason to gestate the new reality that we get to create once we get out of this.
Yes.
And we get to be able to have so much manifest that is so different, like these incredible things that the Renaissance created.
Yes, I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
All right, so we've completely gone over the amount of time that we were supposed to talk about. But to sum up for people for whom this seems like a really kind of crazy topic, you're allowed to love yourself. You don't have to accomplish anything in order to love yourself, and practice it. It's a practice because, like riding a bike, you just have to keep trying to get back on there. Number one was love yourself. Number two was, what was number two?
It was the separation and the combining.
It'd be different. You and your brother are different.
Yeah.
Even about politics, but you're together.
Yeah.
Be different together.
Yeah.
And then if you're a parent, create a tribe. Love your children in any way you can. Don't say, I don't have enough money to celebrate my child's birthday. It doesn't take money.
You can make a little thing. We used to make things for each other. This is beautiful. In India, they have a day called Rakhi Day, and they make little bracelets. The girl makes a bracelet for the boy who's just a really great, great friend, and they want to have like a brother. And they make it and give it to the dude. They make it out of themselves. I do a lot of Pachamama Alliance work. It's pachamama.org. And everybody who comes to take the symposium, this initial program, Awaken the Dreamer, Change the Dream, they get one of these little bands and somebody ties it on them. Why? Because you don't do it yourself. You're in a tribe. You're with a buddy.
Right.
And buddy systems are extremely important to create so you can continue to do the practices, not try to do them. You support each other in being able to do these simple things that we work on.
The other concept that we missed was the idea that love is a multiplier. And just by an act of kindness, you can create 50 people happy. And it doesn't cost anything. All it is a mindset. And then create a tribe. And then just like Yitzhak Adiza said, we can reintegrate the globe with love.
Totally.
Do you have another concluding statement?
Your vibes are felt by people around you further away than you imagine. Some people are very sensitive. They're called empaths. They can feel that. My son, when we're up on the World Trade Center, the year before it got blasted, and I say blasted, the year that it happened, that the Trade Center went down, my dad phoned and he says, there was an explosion at the Twin Towers and my wife repeated what he said on the phone because we didn't have phones that were so loud. And my boy heard it, and he was only 7 years old at the time. And he never left the house. We didn't have TV in those days. We didn't have a radio on, nothing. He didn't go anywhere. He comes back to my wife after she got off the phone. He says, Mom, it wasn't an explosion. It was a plane that headed near the top. And my wife is thinking, what is my son doing? What kind of a brain does he have? How could he think of such a thing? Half an hour or so later, my sister phones and says what happens.
Wow.
My wife almost fell over.
So your son is possibly an empath.
Possibly?
I didn't know if you wanted to be that concrete about it. But yeah, okay.
You don't have to be ever concrete about things. It's like asking permission to do something. There's no asking permission in many languages. There's no word for a teacher or a student in Maori, in this indigenous language of the New Zealanders, and so on and so forth, because everybody is learning and experiencing life as it is. Life is not linear. When we see, 11:11, that's auspicious. Before we had the circular time, everybody may remember clocks in those days. It was circular time because cycles of time. We got out of being in the moment. Listen to this. We got out of being in the moment when we created time. That's when we created future and past.
And linguists are very guilty of that. I mean, linguists are always talking about tense. But I have a really good linguist friend who's always saying, he's kind of mad at linguists for creating all of these concepts of past and future, and just to be present, just to be present. Okay, so we really ran out of time, and we have many more topics to cover. So I will look forward to our next opportunity to be here together again.
I look forward to it, Jessica. Have a good one. Thank you for having me.
You too. Namaste.
Everybody, aloha.
Aloha. Namaste.
Yes.